Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending our committee meeting on Monday, March 3rd. We have two committee meetings, one being student services and the next curriculum. We will start with student services, public comment. We don't have any today, so we're going to move on to the items for discussion. The first will be our overnight trip proposal, which will be done by Mr. Tyler Bigham.
Good evening, members of the school board, administrators, and community members. My name is Liam Worth, and I am the president of this Penrose High School's Future Business Leaders of America's Club.
And my name is Ariana Porter, and I am the vice president of the Future Business Leaders of America Club. To start, I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. We are here on behalf of the Future Business Leaders of America, also known as FBLA, to request your support in allowing our team to attend the PA FBLA State Conference in Hershey, PA from April 6th to April 9th of the year 2025. Additionally, we are requesting financial assistance of $2,500 to help cover student costs so that all 15 of our members have the opportunity to participate in this valuable event without having any financial barriers. So why is this trip important and why does it matter? Our club consists of hardworking students who have dedicated time and effort to developing their leadership, business, and career skills. Attending this conference is a unique opportunity for us to compete against top students in the state in events that challenge our business knowledge, attend hands-on workshops, network with future leaders from across Pennsylvania, and have the opportunity or possibility to earn scholarships and state recognition. In today's world, as we all know, it is crucial for students to gain real-world experience, hear from industry professionals, and build strong networks to set themselves up for future success. Business and leadership skills are not just learned in the classroom. They're developed through hands-on experiences like this conference, where students can test their abilities in a competitive environment, gain insights from professionals, and grow their confidence. Penridge has always been a strong supporter of student opportunities that promote leadership, career readiness, and academic achievement as seen in our community's dedication to extracurricular success. This trip is another step toward ensuring that students have access to experiences that prepare them for life after high school. It is important to note that students have taken their own time, outside of school to prepare for this competition. Many have spent weeks, if not months, preparing, dedicating their time, creating presentations, business plans, or financial strategies to compete at the highest level. This is not just a trip, it is a culmination of hard work, dedication, and passion for business and leadership. Penridge also has a strong tradition of success at this conference, and we are eager to continue representing our school with pride. Now we'll talk about the trip details.
Okay, so for the trip details, the dates of our event run from April 6th to April 9th. There are 15 students attending, ranging from grades 9 through 12. There will be 3 school days missed, April 7th, 8th, and 9th. Our chaperones will be our 2 FBLA advisors, Tyler Bigham and Adam Tater. For our security measures, there will be paid security located at all conference venues and hotels. Security will monitor the hotels throughout the night, and students will have strict curfew times to ensure safety. For financial need and request, the total cost per trip for this trip is $150, covering transportation, lodging, and registration. While we have been actively fundraising, the cost remains a barrier for some students. Our request for $2,500 would allow us to reimburse the students for their expenses, ensuring that financial hardship does not prevent anyone from attending. Supporting this request aligns with the district's commitment to fostering academic excellence, career readiness, and leadership development. Many of us will use the skills we gain from this experience in future careers in business, marketing, finance, and beyond. For emergency preparedness, we also want to ensure you that emergency plans are in place in the event of accidents, cancellations, or unexpected weather conditions. The conference has adapted to virtual formats in the past if necessary, and deposits for hotels and registration are refundable based on cancellation deadlines. By approving our request, you are investing in the future leaders of Penridge. We are committed to representing our school and community with excellence, and we hope you will support us in making this trip accessible to all students. Thank you for your time and consideration. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I have just a few questions. You were fundraising. How much did you raise towards the?
Yeah, I can speak
about.
on this. Yeah, so for in the beginning of the year, I organized a fundraiser with the random courtesy, and we raised $500 to that. Currently, I'm also also in the works of setting up a fundraiser with McDonald's. We're going to do 2 locations, market it, get a lot of our team to go out, hopefully a lot of the school as well. And we're also combining this event with the Unified Club, so then we'll get a lot more people, like both clubs will market it. And we also have our 3v3, our annual 3v3 basketball tournament coming up, which in 3v3 series we've raised, what was it, like $650.
And what's the total cost of it? You said 150?
150 per student, so
Wow.
2,500.
That includes a hotel?
Yes. Yeah, and actually here, if we scroll down, here, we are doing option 2.
And how do you pick who gets to go?
So in around December, each student has to take a test on like a certain area of business that they're interested in. And in the region, the top 6 students in each area of interest are chosen to qualify for states. So all of us had to qualify.
Oh, you have to qualify. Okay, those are the numbers. So everybody you wanted to go is going?
Yes.
Did you?
So,
Do you have
so you're asking for 2,500, but I guess if you've raised 500 and whatever you raise, for example, McDonald's, well then you'll ask for whatever's needed, deducting from the 25, or regardless of what you're gonna raise, you still need the 2,500.
I would say as of right now, regardless of 2,500 would be
Okay.
very nice. Fundraising money also goes into our bank account and prepares for like other events that we're gonna do, kind of backs up in case of any like emergencies that would happen. And in this case, we weren't to get 2,500, our fundraising money does and supports.
And we'll work with Mr. Ketty to make sure that it's fully funded.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, this is good practice for a business world, is presenting in front of a group of people.
Nice job.
Thank you for
Yeah.
showing up.
Nice job.
I'm looking at the flyer for the event, and it covers a lot of very interesting areas.
Absolutely, yeah.
Incredibly helpful.
Definitely support future business leaders.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I
We
spoke to
appreciate
them before, and they were very committed, and it was great talking to you guys, so I think it's great.
How long have we been doing this trip?
We've been doing it since around, I think, 2012.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know it was a long
We had to take a
period.
year off because of the COVID year. We had to take a year off, and I think it took us about another extra year to get it back up and running.
Good luck.
It's great.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
On to iSmart for Caregivers with Mr. Johnson.
So this evening, I wanted to promote this program that is due to be at Penridge next week in the LGI, next week Tuesday evening. It's a partnership between NOVA, which is a comprehensive victim services agency in Bucks County, and actually a Bucks County detective. So Bucks County detective, his name is Dante, and a member from NOVA will present on iSmart Caregivers. The part of this program really is an offshoot of a September program that occurred for the district on mental health strength for life. There were some questions that resulted from that, and one of the board members actually asked, is it possible that we have a program that's geared towards online safety, social media use among students, and work with the social workers, some of the school counselors called around and found out that NOVA in Bucks County has such a program and has done a presentation for other school districts, parents, and community members. So they were more than happy to come, and I think this can be an annual program. The focus of it will be on strategies for parents, not to necessarily take away social media from kids, but to help them exercise good judgment when using social media. There's statistics that they're gonna present on what social media use has been on phones since COVID. I think there was about a 17% increase since COVID on kids ages 6 to 17, which is a pretty staggering statistic. The other challenge within this area, and the reason that the Bucks County Detective is going to come, is because there's been an emerging issue not only in Bucks County, but other counties regarding sexploitation. So part of the program will speak directly to sexploitation, and the Bucks County Detective will give statistics related to Bucks County in comparison to the state and the nation. So I think it's gonna be a great program for our community. I'm hoping that we have a lot of people out. We're gonna continue to promote it, like David Thomas, for promoting other programs that we've had this year. Last week, we did a bullying presentation with Ron Roland, of the intermediate unit. He did an excellent job, a lot of good information, brain-based research. So this is just another program that the superintendent and board have authorized that we're very, very excited about. Any questions?
The bullying presentation was very good, so thank you so much. For this, what sort of information do we give our students around this sort of stuff? Like, do we do any assemblies or things like that for the students to know, hey, be careful with this?
I think that's a good step.
Yeah.
They have done presentations for kids, so if that's something that the board and superintendent would be agreeable to, I think we can bring them in to do similar programming related to this specific topic.
Well, since we have Dr. Scheid with us, okay.
So we actually have done this with our middle school students in particular, Mr. Gallo, Joe Gallo, and local law enforcement. They went to the middle schools and provided very serious
Yeah.
information to our middle school students.
Right.
Yes.
Like, this stuff's out there forever, even if it's not.
Yeah, right.
And what's inappropriate, even if you're both underage and stuff like that, it's still illegal, like you have to be careful.
Was there any review of that in high school? I mean, it does seem like a good point that it should be an ongoing thing with the students, because,
Yes, I think it was with the ninth graders as well.
okay.
But it was really, we were noticing a pattern in our middle schools, which is why we ended up doing that through the 3 middle schools.
Can we get more information on what's been done or what's the schedule? So,
I mean,
No,
I
it's a
think
good
you're talking
point.
about the sexploitation part, and that even happens among students, and I think they think like, oh, it's like, it's not. Okay.
Believe it or not, among
Legal.
middle school students,
Yeah.
and even the later elementary years. As you know, you have second and third graders with I did hear from some of the elementary principals, even first and second graders, which was pretty shocking to me. But so I think the importance of educating, to Mr. Wurz's point, not only your point, not only the adults, but also the kids. I don't think there's never an age too early to begin, because kids at that age have access to devices.
Yeah. But as a parent, I really need this too. I appreciate it, because I've been waiting.
And one of the things we encounter too is weekend activity on the phones and how it spills into the schools on Monday morning. Just the whole, kids texting one another, sometimes inappropriate language used, and then it'll spill over into the schools. And so we're trying to work with our parent community and our principals and teachers to have responsible use and appropriate screen time, and we are seeing younger students having phones these days, and it's just it's a parent's prerogative, of course, but and there's compelling evidence out there now. One of the popular books is The Anxious Generation. I'm Mr. Lee Rush, if you're out there, I'm halfway through the book right now. But it's compelling, and I think it's a read that all of us adults should go through and take a look at it. And it's a very multi-layered approach to the amount of screen time and more younger kids not having opportunities to get outside and play, and just more involved with these devices, and just and some of the dangers that can have with respect to like cognitive development and other things, and that leads to a byproduct of different behaviors as adults. So it's something that is clearly a national issue. It's international, actually. But I agree with Mr. Wurz. I think more education for even adults. For us to be aware of statistics out there, and the deleterious effect that these devices and too much screen time can have on multiple levels.
And that's a component of the program as well. We'll talk about wellness and emotional health for kids who, for lack of a better term, are glued to their devices for an inordinate amount of time daily.
Yeah, I think most of them.
And it's not just students,
Yeah.
you know, naturally. I mean, a lot of adults around are, you know, very, to quote you, glued to their devices, so.
I was telling Mr. Johnson that before we moved here, my oldest was in Lower Marion for her first year, and they did a week, screen-free week, that the entire family committed to. No TV, like when you got home. It was the best week, because everyone was outside, everyone was playing, and then we're like, we're gonna keep doing this, and it was over. But it was really eye-opening.
Game of Thrones
It
came
was
out.
so much fun. It's so much fun though, like it was, because they were little, and the same thing, like you don't realize, even as a parent, how much you rely on the screen with your little kids. You're like, oh, quick, do this while I'm getting this done. I loved it. And I think if our elementary, I don't think our high school did, but for the little kids, like, the whole school really got into it. You committed to like, how many days as a family are we going to do the whole week? Were you just going to do like 3 days? And
It's very interesting.
it was really fun.
It's something, you know, another dangers, you know, we talk about this idea of driving while distracted.
Yeah.
And, you know, unfortunately, people lose their lives or innocent people are killed as a result of, you know, folks being on their devices. And I read a statistic once, I'm not sure how true it is, that if you're driving while you're texting, it's just as bad as driving while intoxicated. In fact, maybe even more dangerous. So.
I just wanted to add one more thing. I wanted to thank you and the administration, because we talked about it as a board of all these different things we could do to help the students, and you guys really came through with the bullying and mental health and this coming up, and it's nice to see that we're focusing on mental health a lot more than we did in the past. You guys have always been very approachable and really anxious to do stuff, and what you found is these programs are incredible. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rose.
Yes, thank you very much. You can tell the amount of work that it takes to put this together. We went to the presentation of bullying, and it was wonderful, as I'm sure this will be too. So thank you. I know that it takes a lot to put this through, so I appreciate that. Any other questions? No? All right, well, thank you. And our next meeting for Student Services is scheduled for Monday, April 7th. We'll move on next to Curriculum Committee.
No public comment.
Public comment.
Alright, so first up on our docket for tonight will be Dr. Scheid and Mr. Gersh doing a progress report on middle school. So Dr. Scheid.
Thank you, Mr. Merkelbaum. We are excited for this presentation. As you remember, in the beginning of the year in the fall, we did a 5-year longitudinal data study on all of our tested subject areas. And we had a proposal, we were considering making some changes to middle school math. And what everyone agreed upon was that we would look at our 6th grade math and create an honors 6th grade program, which Mr. Gersh is going to talk to you about tonight. In addition to that, we wanted to give you an update on the progress of our middle school students in mathematics using our Linkit benchmark data. So that is the data that you will see this evening. And I want to thank Mr. Gersh and Mrs. Whalen, who I have worked with for the last 10 years. She is one of our middle school math teachers. And they have been working really hard and very creatively to find different ways to improve middle school math instruction so that learning improves. And then additionally, to create something really interesting and innovative for our 6th graders. So with that, I turn that over to Mr. Gersh.
Thank you for having us. I do have a lot of slides, but I think we can get through them rather quickly. I first wanted to talk about Linkit. I know you hear Linkit all of the time. I think it's always good to come back and just explain what some of those terms mean. Linkit will be talked about as far as our data warehouse is concerned. That's where we pull all of our data. That's where our PSSA scores can be kept, where our elementary school taking their STAR benchmarks, that data gets kept. There's lots of data that's in there, and that's our data warehouse. that we're always looking into. There's also the Linkit benchmark assessments, and that's what I'll be speaking about this evening. Those are assessments created by the Linkit folks that are aligned to the standards that we this year for the first time gave in our middle school. And then Mrs. Whalen is going to talk a little bit about the common assessments. That's another thing where Linkit has the ability for our teachers to actually create their own assessments in a Linkit testing platform, or they can pull test banks from other previous PSSAs and things like that. So you can make your own tests in Linkit. So sometimes when we say in Linkit, it means we're just going to the data warehouse. Sometimes we say in Linkit, that's the benchmark exams that we gave this year. And then sometimes it's us making our own common assessments and putting them.
Excuse me, so that was the first year you've done
So this is
Linkit
the first
benchmarks
year
in middle school?
we gave middle school, the Linkit middle school benchmarks.
What did we do before that?
So there are, well, kind of new, but I mean,
You may not have the
You
answer.
can use that for 1 year.
CDPs, I believe, were
Yeah.
used. We also had our own staff was making their own benchmarks. But I think we felt that we wanted something that was very aligned. There's a very strong correlation between Linkit's benchmarks and the PSSAs and scoring, so that's why we formalized that.
I think that's a very good idea.
So this year we gave in middle school the benchmarks in ELA and math. We gave benchmark form A in September, and also then benchmark form C. We just finished that up. In fact, some schools are still finishing that up this week. Logical question is about B. So there are a beginning of the year, a mid-year, and an end of course. We decided at the beginning of the year, and we'll revisit that, we wanted to give benchmark form C and give us enough time to be able to get that data back and use that as a formative piece to see how can we actually improve our instruction to get ready for the PSSAs. So we kind of look at it as we gave a beginning of the year, a mid-year, and then the PSSAs is what we'll use for our last one. We don't want to be over-testing our
Right.
students, so we don't have to. We really want to be cognizant of that. So all students in grades 6th, 7th, and 8th took them for Math 6, Math 7th, or Math 8, regardless of their math class. So as you may know, in our middle school, in 7th grade, we have students taking Math 7, but we also have students taking pre-algebra and Algebra 1. And in 8th grade, we have students taking pre-algebra, Algebra 1 geometry. But all of our students, regardless of the math class they were in, were taking that benchmark because we wanted to see where they are as far as in the content, the eligible content to be ready for the PSSA. So that's another conversation we can have about, okay, well, we have 8th grade geometry students who are taking this test, this assessment, but they're not being taught that at this time. And how does that then correlate to our PSSAs when they take them at the end of the year? The other point I wanted to talk about was with the cut scores. As you go from your beginning of the year to your mid-year to your final year, the cut scores to be advanced increase. So if a student scores a certain level, they may be advanced here, but if they score that same level on the next one, they're not going to be advanced anymore because it's assumed that as we go through the year, we're doing more of that content, they should be getting better. So as we see improvements in percentage of advance, that's a really good thing because we're getting students doing it, plus they are raising up to the next level, and we're having more students join them as well. Bubble is also something that's a Linkit feature that's not on the PSSAs. There's not a bubble category. But they take the students who are in the bottom 10% of that proficiency. These are some students that you really want to keep your eye on. We want to make sure that we keep them proficient. So you'll see lots of numbers here. I gave the first slide here is about that comparison, and we're looking at the percentage of students who moved from advanced on benchmark A to benchmark C. And again, they had to get better to get to that advanced threshold. Across the board, it looks like we were improving.
Wait, go back one?
Yeah.
That's just the benchmark.
That's from A to C, yes.
A to C, so
students
to
took 9.9%
advanced-
of our 6th
Oh,
graders
nine.
were advanced.
And then it went to
all of
4.
them, and then we had more students join them.
What-
Proficient.
We're proficient, but
I'm gonna throw a lot of numbers at you here that you might wanna digest at your leisure, but I'll kind of give you some
yeah, point out the highlights.
highlight. I think it's important
There's
for
a
you
lot
as
of
well
data there.
to see all of those links are clickable on the standards, just so you can see what that content actually is and what it's about. That'll take you to the SAS website from the state, and you can click on eligible content and even see what types of example questions would fall into that. So as we look there, and the 76 to 100 means that's the number of questions. 27.1% of the students got between 76 and 100% of the questions on that standard.
Okay, even though the next one got harder, so.
Correct.
So an improvement there is
Right.
growth
Yeah.
of other students. And
Right, so that's it. So if you want to click on those standards, you can and see what that's all about. It's
Can you
also
go back?
broken.
Can you go back?
Yeah.
So did all of them go up? I mean, not in that one category.
As far as the advanced, yes. As far as for each standard, our students.
So 76 to 100 is advanced? Does that match up with that, or
No,
it doesn't? It's just the number of questions that they got right.
correct. So we can see improvement. It doesn't directly correlate to advanced.
It doesn't.
Those are not the advanced, proficient, basic, below basic.
Just number of questions,
thresholds,
correct.
All right, move on to just how it's breaking down the data, also by the topic. And if you look at D1, the first one, if you look at those numbers, you would see those are the same numbers as ratios and proportional relationships. So all of those things from D1, that's pretty much synonymous with ratios and proportional relationships. But there are the other topics that are in Math 6. And then I have this broken down by skills as well. Again, you could start going crazy by looking at all of these numbers. I just want to point out, like, I'll look at identifying the third one, identifying equivalent expressions. You're like, wow, we went from 70%, did really well, and then on the benchmark C, 6%. So what happened there? Well, you can tell by the fact that they either got 70% or 30%. There was only one question. You either got it right or wrong. And that could have been a fairly easy question. And the fact that I see a 0, in 6.3, 0, 45.1, 48.6, that means there must have only been 2 questions. So you have to take this with a grain of salt. So I threw all that information just to show you this type of skills we're doing in 6th grade. You'll go crazy if you start looking at each one of those.
So you know the number of questions on each one, you just put it there. Because that
And I will
would help
talk a little about
because
what we do with that data as well. This is important too, as you may know, the state is moving to all online testing. So this is interesting, looking at the actual types of questions and seeing that the drag and drop. I know that 0.2% means there's one student in 6th grade who got all 3 of the drag and drop questions right. The second time around, it's 25%, that's like 100 students. So we went from one student getting them all right to 100 students getting them all right. So we are seeing improvement there. But it's important for them to get that practice as well, and we can see improvement in those things. All right, as far as the interventions and what we do with all that data, back in October in our professional development, we had Amber come in from Lincoln and meet with all of our middle school teachers and go over how they can make their own dashboards and how they can look at their own students and drill all the way down. So that was a fantastic session we had with her. After, a couple weeks after, so we have them for benchmark A but not yet C, Lincoln will give us the Navigator reports broken down by all the different schools, and they'll also give us Navigator reports comparing all the teachers and all the buildings, so we take a look at those. As well as our coaches get involved and look at the data. For example, and this is not in the presentation that I had sent out last week. This I just grabbed from one of our coaches, Stacy Clemmer, who does a lot with data. And not only do we look at the topics and the standards and see how our students are doing in there, we drill all the way down, and this is telling us every question, and not only which questions are they getting right or wrong, but what wrong answers are they choosing. So they're getting together, they're making this, they're putting together a presentation that might just say, like, on this question, 75% of the students not only got it wrong, but they all picked the same wrong answer. So they make this presentation to coaches, go out to the middle schools and say, here, they're getting this topic wrong, and this is the mistake that they are making. So they go through each of the questions one at a time to analyze that, to really focus in on what we can do in our instruction to improve our student performance on those types of questions.
So may I just try to synthesize this for the board and community for a second? So rolling out and executing these Linkit benchmarks, what we're trying to do in the three middle schools is provide alignment. And I know if you can scroll back up, like to the aggregate information. So that would be composed of all three middle schools. But we break it down. We had the training from Linkit. Amber came out, educated the teachers, and the teachers have access to these navigator reports so they can see their students in real time, how they did. You can do comparisons of teachers, so if one teacher is having great success with their kids having excellent results, we try to find out what's the secret sauce that this teacher's doing and how are they teaching skills. So when we think about historical data, we don't have historical data. This is the first year that we're rolling out Linkit and having full alignment between all three middle schools. So I just wanted to put that out there for you. So do you have a question or?
Yes, so
Yes.
with that data that you have, who then tells the teachers? Is it the supervisor and then the instructional coaches? They analyze all
It's
this
a
data
combination
and then they go
of
out to the teachers and.
We will hear from Ms. Whalen in a little bit. Do you want to speak about something you do as your role as a teacher? She's a, you want to stand up by the micro, or just stand up? And Ms. Whalen is a math teacher at North Middle School.
Correct. So I was just telling Mr. Barrios earlier today that over the weekend, once these scores started rolling in, I did exactly this. I broke down all different aspects of it. I have 8 weeks until the PSSAs. So on Friday, my principal, Dr. Tara Collis, is meeting with all of the 8th grade teachers, and we are setting up a plan. Where are they going wrong? Where are we going right? What kind of things do we need to adjust? How do we need to adjust the curriculum? What kind of different types of things can we add to the curriculum at this point in time? So I of course, preemptively started to go through all of the information, found all of my weak points, started looking at statistically where I need to go, and I have now a plan in place. I just need to sit down and meet with her, and we're gonna execute the plan to make kids have great success.
And if I could just say, that is a result of the data teams that we talked about last month, that each of the buildings have a data team, and that is what Mrs. Whalen's talking about.
And so now everybody's looking at the same information.
Correct. So at the beginning of the year, as part of the data team, we sat down and pulled all the PSSA information. We analyzed the data. We said, okay, 6th grade is a weakness here, 7th grade is a weakness here, 8th grade is a weakness here, which was geometry, which I have not gotten to yet because it's still part of upcoming curriculum. And then we sat down and sure enough, when the benchmark C came out, that's where we saw the drop. So I know that that's something we need to get to before the PSSAs start. So it completely coincides with the data team that we did at the very beginning of the year to the specific grade, not only math, but English and science are also meeting and setting up a plan for success for the students.
Thank you.
I'm not finished down yet. Well, we're gonna go through, so then there's another example of that. I do have the data for the benchmark for A for grade 7. Again, I wanted to put that in there just so you would have then a link to the standards as well and see what's happening in grade 7 to be able to compare what's happening there. The same topics in Math 6 and Math 7, they're the same. The skills are going to be a little bit different, but you have that information there. Again, the types, and then the information is also going to be there for 8th grade as well. We look there at the very bottom, identifying images of transformations. That gets into some of the geometry Ms. Whalen was speaking of as well. The text entry, that one's a tough one. 0% got those questions right. 88% did not do well on that. As an 8th grade teacher, maybe you can, I don't know if you want to talk about the students taking that test now. That's where they get to the math part where they're now writing their answers, and they don't really enjoy that experience a whole lot. But that's definitely something we have to work on and make sure that they know come PSSA time what the expectation is there.
So, go back.
Okay.
So 0% of the number of text questions they got right, or you said 76 to 100, but that was.
So there were 4 questions that
Okay.
were text entry, that's
That-
saying no one got all 4 of them right.
You should probably add that to the chart, because it looks like there were 76 out of 100, if you look at the column. And we got 0 of those.
Percent, round.
What?
Yes.
The top there, that's percent.
Okay, but it still helps to know how many questions are, that whether it's weighted or
I think each
Yeah.
one is a different number of questions.
Yeah, it's
Right,
gonna be
that's
all
what-
over the place.
But I mean, if some has 50 of the questions, then that one's a
Yeah.
lot more serious than the one that had 2.
Right, and that's
And
where
we
I
just
think
don't know.
for that, when you look at all the skills, there's plenty in there that might only have 1 question or 2 questions, and that's
Yeah.
why.
I think that's relevant to those.
Alright.
So there's no C yet on those?
Say that?
The benchmark.
No, C is just getting done now.
Okay.
When I put that together, we did not have even 50% of the students finish that, so I didn't. But they're finishing that right now.
Mr. Gersh then asked if I would come and talk about a couple of things that are happening in the 8th grade world at the middle school level, which I'm very excited about because all 3 8th grades are coming together to work together to deliver a better product is the way I'm, and working for the benefit of the students. The 8th grade curriculum, I have actually had the privilege of working on the curriculum for geometry, honors geometry. I worked on it all summer long with Howard, and we came up with a new geometry curriculum about 2 years ago. I moved on then and worked on the Algebra 1 curriculum as well. So 3rd and final component for 8th grade is Math 8, and that is the component. I'm leading a team currently right now through all 3 middle schools, and we are working on curriculum. I have a PLT actually tomorrow that I'll be running and working with curriculum with the 8th grade teachers. How are we working on PSSA concepts? What kind of activities are happening in our rooms? What kind of projects are we working on? So we're collaborating together and trying to find the most useful ways to help students gain progress. And we are also just started working on common assessments in Lincoln. So we've had common assessments, but now we're taking those common assessments and we are getting them into Lincoln and working together. So it has so many great benefits. Number 1, oh my goodness, the questions are so much rigorous, so hard. There's open-ended questions in there that kids need to use the tools in Lincoln. They need to use their stylus and write in the actual boxes. And then we're taking all of that information. Once the students can take the test, they're all standard-based. We can line those standards straight up with the benchmarks and kind of see like where are we falling apart, where are we dropping, not only in the benchmarks, but in our dated, our unit tests as we go through them. So again, we can go back and start cleaning up some things that need to be cleaned up if things need to be readdressed or we missed an area and you can tell right away. The data is invaluable that we're getting and it's given to us so we can go back and forth and work with our students and stuff like that. So that's the curriculum that we're constructing right now, and very much standard-based curriculum is being created.
How often do you do a common assessment?
Well, it really depends. So I sat down over the summer and then met with Kathy and went over the standards that are for 8th grade and for Math 8, and currently I'm reconstructing the entire curriculum for Math 8. So for every standard, there are approximately 4 to 5 anchors, and we've broken them into units. So I would say we have approximately 5 units right now. We have 5 units, and I would say we give about 2 to 3 unit tests per unit. So it's probably around every 3 to 4 weeks. Now, as I said to you, this is a complete new process, and all the teachers are working very hard to come back together and give input and feedback and change things and adjust things and make them better for the students so that there's more success.
And
What I'm really excited about is that they're online. And so now they're going to be taking a PSSA that's online. So they've been taking these tests all year online. So I'm really hoping it correlates to a more successful situation for the students.
and prior, teachers were doing their own tests, or
Well, we had common assessments.
you had a common assessment?
Yes.
Okay.
That
That
we
was paper.
created. This is created by Linkit, looking at the standards, pulling from the standards, and the questions we are definitely raising the bar.
Anita, will you talk about not only raising the bar for students, but for teachers?
Yes, and we are absolutely raising the bar for teachers as well. It has made, I'll just use myself as an example. There are times where I'm looking at the assessment that I created using resources. Now, it's not, so I worry that it sounds subjective. Oh, let me as a teacher make a test that's easy for my students to be successful on. That is not, these are pulled straight from resources that are difficult. They're very, very high level thinking. So I will just use this example. We started doing systems of equations for 8th grade. Again, I'm teaching Math 8 students. Instead of just solving systems, which was the old way of doing everything, now we're solving systems and they have to explain them. They have to say, okay, you came up with X, what does X mean? Okay, you came up with Y, what does Y mean? Okay, what if we change X? Then what happens with Y? Like, it's beautiful. I'm so excited. I really am. I'm sorry, I just get so excited.
That's great. Now I love that.
Like, just watching, and then when these kids have this moment where they're like, wait, I get it. I'm like, okay, you got it, good. It's very exciting. Now, I will tell you, we just started the functions unit about 2 weeks ago. No, I'm sorry. Yes, about 2 weeks ago. Then we took the Linkit benchmark, and I saw so much progress in just the functions piece in the little amount of time. But again, it was because the questions are rigorous. The questions are, they require such a great amount of thinking, higher level, higher order thinking from students. And it's exciting, but it is taking me a moment to be like, wait, how do I teach this? How do I get them to think outside the box? It's huge. So I'm excited about it. It's good stuff. So Linkit Common Assessments, that's what we just discussed. And then finally, we have Mr. Garish is coming into my room on Wednesdays, about every other 3 weeks, whenever he decides to come in. And my kids are really excited. They actually asked me today, when is Mr. Garish going to come back into our room? So I have what's called Math Workshop. Math Workshop students were identified as bubble students, that they're sitting right at that proficient, and we're trying to make sure they stay proficient. So I teach Math Workshop as one of my classes, and Mr. Garish is coming in, and he is teaching them Python, as I said, about every other week, every 2 weeks. The most amazing thing has happened. I currently have them doing a project called the Stock Market Project. And this is where it all kind of came together. And I gave them $10,000. They had to go and buy 5 stocks minimum, possibly 10. And then they had to track their stocks over a period of time. So every Friday they would come in, that was their warm up. They'd jump on, they'd quickly check their stocks, see what's happening. They have to create an equation with them. They have to give me gains and losses. They have to give me increasing and decreasing percentage rates. On Thursday and Friday of this week, we are actually going to be writing letters to the companies that they invested in and explaining the stock market project. And when they would come in every Friday, they had to do slope. They have to do, as I said, the equations. And what happened was Mr. Garish was like, well, wait a second, I actually have a really cool thing that we can do with them. So he has come in and he has begun teaching them Python. And Python is a computer science program where they have to write code, thank you. That word. So they write code. Well, so my students in my math workshop are all bits and pieces of all the classes that I teach during the day. And he taught them how to write code that will go out and grab the prices, and then they now can sit and they can write their equations and they can see their prices come in, and it's all done live. And it was absolutely amazing to watch. Well then, when they sat on Friday and they're like, Mrs. Whalen, can we use Python? I'm like, yes, use Python. And the kids were all like, wait, what's Python? What are they doing over there? And they watched them go in and send out the information, boom, the information came back, and they're sitting there, and these kids are still, the other ones are one at a time, trying to check them, and they just in one fell swoop, out it went, in it went, and now they're writing their equations, now they're checking their gains and losses, and it was very, very, very exciting to watch watch this happen, so now I have more that are very excited to know about Python and understand what they can learn from it. They have learned slope-intercept form, equations, what else have they learned? Functions, yes, it's been really neat. So that was the experience that I wanted to share with you with computer science. Does anybody have any questions?
Who made the most money?
Oh, well, so the person who made the most money, I bought them lunch.
Oh,
So
that's
I had
great.
5 winners, 4 winners, and 3, so yes.
Which
So I
stops?
said,
Yeah,
well,
that's right. Bring 'em in.
They raised.
They made over $1,200.
Wow.
Yeah.
One student made over $1,200, it was really interesting.
Cryptocurrency or?
Spotify was the winner. And you know what was really neat? So I pulled it up and we could see, I was showing them the graphs. And it was like increasing, decreasing. Oh, look, that's positive slope. Oh, look, that's negative slope. Like we were walking through all of that information, and it was really neat. And that is actually the next thing that might be coming in to teach them is how to get the graphs up and how they can have their stocks graph all the way through and create those graphs with Python. So it's been a good collaboration between the two of us.
I think this is all fantastic. I was wondering, the question I had was like, when we looked at the ones with the text where obviously like no one got them and recognizing it's only 4 questions.
Mhm.
When you guys see that, like what are some of your thoughts then on how do we help kids get better at this section?
I
Like,
totally agree with you. Yes,
Yeah.
and I think it's a little bit of because it's on the computer,
mhm.
it can be a little bit of a mind block to try and make sure that they're getting through each one. The second thing is I have recently started making them write strategies. So, this was probably like 2 months into the school year, I started to notice that students they were struggling with explaining their work. And that's what those text boxes really ask for. Not only completing the work, but explaining what they just received. So now when we do these maintenance sheets every week, so they have to do a maintenance sheet every day. The first 5 minutes of class, they come in and they are asked to solve 4 problems, and then they have to tell me their strategy for solving it. And so I'm hoping, but yes, I agree with you. It's a tough sell. They do not like to write math.
And I would think there is a pretty big concern that everyone I've talked to, going to online testing, kids don't do as well. Kids, they don't like typing online, they don't like answering the questions online, they don't like reading online. But I think it's smart to move to using this online platform to get the kids more used to it. This is just the way we do it.
Oh, yeah. No.
And get those kids to train in that same way that they're going to be tested. I think it's smart.
I just feel like my question, like with mathematics, when you have something like a multiple choice, you can eliminate answers. You know, like I know it needs to be an odd number, so these 2 are out, like stuff like that, as opposed to learning the strategy behind it, like how you actually solve this problem. So I think math is a little bit different with that, but I love this program. Like I really like that we're assessing everyone the same, we're able to so quickly identify where we need to give some booster shots.
And I do agree with you, and I agree with Dr. Palmer. I do think by having them now practice it for, it's live and it's real, I'm fingers crossed that it really does.
And I will say one more thing about Mrs. Whalen and what we all have learned. The language of math has been the deficit from the get-go. It is the explanation. It is the writing. It has always been. And Mrs. Whalen's been a leader in that, in ensuring if you walk into her room, those kids are writing, they're speaking, and it really is, it's not typically a computational issue with kids. It is explanations. It's the language of math. So they're all doing a wonderful job ensuring that students do this on a daily basis. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And the last thing I wanted to speak about this evening is the Math 6 week. I was back in the fall, I spoke with you a number of times, got your feedback about that. Everything was very positive about creating an opportunity for some of our high-achieving elementary school students or middle school students to be in a class that they can really start exploring some other topics in math. The feedback from parents was positive. The middle school teachers, very positive. The high school teachers, looking back at what's in middle school and grabbing those students was all very positive. So I am excited about it. I do think it's important that we are all on the same page about as we move through the next step, and that's selecting the students for that and the teachers and some of the cutoffs on that. To just talk about the ability groupings, just a quick review of heterogeneous, the mixed ability classroom, the strengths that we can have, collaborative learning, get everybody together. We set a high bar for everyone. Growth mindset is all about students knowing that their place hasn't been already decided, and if they're going to work, they can have the opportunity to work really hard, they can get better. Some of the challenges that we've had as having Math 6 be heterogeneous was differentiating the instruction, and the pacing is also always going to be a challenge with that. Versus the homogeneous group, where we can target instruction, we can go faster, and we can have better pacing with that, making sure all of our high ability students stay challenged. So as we move forward, what we're looking to do is have this Math 6 accelerated. But when people ask about Penridge and tell me about, oh, is it heterogeneous or homogeneous, I still believe it's important that we have a program where our Math 6 is a heterogeneous class, that we have students of all abilities in Math 6. It just so happens that we also have a homogeneous group of very top accelerated students. Because all of the research is going to point to having those students heterogeneously mixed is very beneficial to all of our students. And if you look over and look at the research in John Hattie and what makes an effective classroom, there is a little asterisk, I think it's a 0.1 for homogeneous, but it's 0.3 when you're taking your gifted students. When I say gifted, I don't mean necessarily having IEP, but those high achieving students, there are benefits to having that top group be in a homogeneous group. So I think it's just really important that we all understand that what we're looking for is Math 6 is still a heterogeneous class that has students of all abilities, and then we have a smaller group of students that we're looking to accelerate, rather than setting up a system where we have this is for our low achieving math students and this is for our high achieving math students. Are we okay with that? Because what's going to happen as we move forward, the next step, we are going to have the cut line of who these students are. So I just want to make sure we were all on the same page, because at some point we're going to have questions from community members about that as far as where does my child fit in all of this. So I want to also stress that and you've seen this slide a number of times, about Math 6 Accelerated, making sure that students in Math 6, in our heterogeneous Math 6, still have all those opportunities to get to all of those places that they want to get to. That by not being in Math 6 Accelerated is not going to preclude you from taking Algebra 1 in 7th grade, or reaching all of your goals in math through our whole program through the high school. Right, so I think that's really important, that when we send out message and we start letting people know about scheduling for next year, that Math 6 students have every opportunity to achieve, get to the highest math classes that we offer.
So who makes the decision that who gets an accelerated and who gets an?
Well, you should ask. So, as far as the rubric for determining which students are in there, we look at their PSSAs in 3rd grade and 4th grade. Those are the end of years. And then in 4th grade, 3 times a year, they take our STAR benchmarks. And in 5th grade, they take benchmarks. In the fall and winter, they will in spring, but that won't be till the end of the year. I've also, and those are things that we use in a rubric to decide. I have asterisked the grade 5 Lincoln benchmarks. So I talked about we gave the Lincoln benchmarks to grades 6, 7, and 8. We're also going to give the last benchmark C to our 5th graders this spring. And then grade 5 PSSA, those results won't come back in until after schedules have been made. But we're definitely going to look at those. If a student maybe didn't do well before, but now in their grade 5 PSSA is really knocking it out of the park, that can overcome some of those other things. So we want to give them an opportunity. The most recent test should show where they are now. So that is not included in the benchmark, but that will be taken into consideration.
What about parents' input?
So going back, and that's a discussion. That's the discussion that we need to have. Because if we're going to keep our Math 6 and do what the research says and have that be a heterogeneous group, we will start running the problem if we allow people to give subjective input about where they want to be. So that's where I think as a district, we need to be on board. And that's why I just wanted to stress a little more about the difference between heterogeneous and homogeneous and what we're really looking for. So we will have those discussions that we will have to make administratively about, opt-ins on that. I think that we would run into some issues allowing this to be choosing your course. Earlier when I met with you in the fall, you talked a lot about when we were discussing algebra in the 7th grade. Should we have where we have a cutoff, and that's the cutoff? And I think that's probably the same place we're back to now.
Do you think some parents are surprised? I mean, what I find interesting here is you've been tracking this for a while, right? But the parents, do they know that? And all of a sudden their kid gets in one selected and you're like, oh, I think they're, like, you have a track record of performance. Maybe,
Right.
are we sharing that ahead of time with the parents? Because if they know 2 years ahead of time that they're not on the right track,
Get a parent.
then it's not a surprise and they think, well, my kid's good enough, put him in there. And I know we run into this, and you do it in 7th grade too, so is there a way to set something and then not bend, and, obviously there's still gonna be cases where you're gonna bend.
Right. So do you feel, Dr. Scheid, that the PSSA information is distributed adequately to there?
Mhm. The parents get the parent, yes.
But do they know that they're not on the track to?
It actually shows, it's a graph, it explains where your student did really well or didn't do
So
really well.
there shouldn't be a surprise when they don't get it.
No, so I get it, I know, I get it, and it shows you how they're doing, so you shouldn't be, if you're
Surprised.
looking at it,
But
you
people are
shouldn't-
still calling. I mean, I don't know how many.
Right, you should,
How
but
many
it,
requests do we get a year for
For
7th grade? Like, oh, they should be
A handful.
just a,
Oh,
okay,
right.
well, if it's
You don't
not an
get a
issue,
lot.
then it's fine.
But you also make a good point when you're saying, even if you're in Math 6, that doesn't mean that you can't, in 7th grade, go to algebra, so you did make that point.
But
Yeah.
I would say looking at benchmark data like
Mhm.
this really kind of takes away the subjectivity. It's not about how a teacher's grading it or how someone feels
Yeah,
about
oh,
the
yeah,
kid.
yeah, no, I agree.
But it really allows us to see what the kid's capability
Well,
is.
if we're only getting a
In a
handful,
pattern,
then it's
right.
not.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a
That's
kid
not
who's
effective.
really at the basic level and the parent is requesting, that a student go
You
into
push,
it,
yeah.
yeah, I think,
Well,
I
think
don't know
it's
that's the
like
right
a
place.
student, as to Carolyn's point, parents don't feel like their students losing time. So say they aren't making these cutoffs and they're in Math 6. And because you had talked last time you presented too, that like some kids just pick up on math later in life also. And maybe Math 6, they sail through it. It's like, all right, you're ready for Algebra 1 then. I feel like there was more of a concern that students were gonna miss out on something.
Right.
But once that's eliminated, I think those sort of issues after the testing, but it turns out the kid maybe should have been a little bit higher than they were placed, there's time for them to catch up.
And the question may come, how many students are we looking at? It's about 15%, the top 15% is about where that is. That would be probably around one section at all of the middle schools. And again, there will be students who have been advanced and shown that they were advanced, but there is also a difference between being advanced with a 1200 and being advanced with a 1400 as well. So that's something that someone they'll look at the scores and see that they've been advanced. And we want advanced students in our heterogeneously grouped Math 6 course. But we have some outstanding students who are the outliers that we're looking to provide some other opportunities for.
And also,
And I'll talk a little bit about what that course may entail right now. And I think it's also important as we move our teachers forward, and we're going to be adding some new things in there, we're moving them out of their comfort level as well. So there's that part too, that they're going to be learning some new things that they're excited about. So to keep that as a group that's manageable, and maybe as we go, they can start to see how this can now fit in and trickle down as well. Because I'll show some of the things that we're looking to have in our Math 6 accelerated class. And the first thing, well, maybe that'd be great to have everywhere. And I think that is the plan, to eventually see what works best and have that trickle down in some of our other courses.
I think Ms. Sharino had a question.
Oh, yeah, I like what you're saying, because I know, like personally, for my son, I wanted Math 6 to be more robust, because then he went straight into Algebra in 7th. And I like what you're saying, is that we're not keeping it the same, it's like you're gonna have it for all the levels, so if someone is in Math 6 that has been doing really well in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, not to feel like, oh, I'm gonna be bored, because he was very just like, I already know this. So I like to hear that that's also gonna be changed, so it is going to be helping everyone at different levels if you're put in Math 6, because you know, what you hear is, oh, they're in Math 6, it's gonna be really easy. Well, it's not, it's still gonna hit every point, every kid that's in that class, so I appreciate that.
So I just wanted to talk about the course there, and again, I've heard about a new course. It's not necessarily a new course, it's still the Math 6, it's the same math series that we're using. Again, we're going back to some of those things about pacing, and those are the content of it. And there's some of those words you saw as far as the topics that showed up on those benchmark data as well. So we have that Math 6 course is broken into a number of units, and they're broken down into chapters. And in each unit, in the 6th grade Math 6 curriculum, there's a project associated with that. And sometimes, with all the content that's there, they don't focus in on that. Well, in the Math 6 Accelerated, every unit that's in the Math 6 curriculum already, that's where we're gonna be looking to infuse some of our other ideas. So the Unit 1 project is about census data. I know Ms. Whalen talked about the writing Python to be able to go out and just grab live data. And I think I have, this is it. So here's some, oh, she may know this as well, we did some things like this, about finding greatest common factor. Because if we look at the first unit, it's talking about ratios and fractions and decimals. If you want to reduce fractions, you need greatest common factor. So there's just some example of some code. It looks really scary, but as I think you can attest to in our Math 6 workshop class, how quickly they kind of at least get what's going on there. And there's some things evaluating, some expressions. I took just some math problems right from the book about like you're renting a houseboat for this many days, how you can make that into functions. And then here, this is the stock market, again, going out and just, not a lot of code, to just go out, Yahoo Finance, and grab all of these stocks. And then at the bottom, that's where they would just go and they would click on this, and it would give them all of their information. This person made $236. Lululemon, so that was the kind of things that we were doing in the Math 8 workshop class. Unit 2, there's a project, Get Out the Map, talks about GPS stuff in there, and here's where the next thing, and this now wants me to come in and just talk about using Python to do all their graphing, and we see slope in there, and they've been doing lots with lines is in there. Here's also an ArcGIS. So this is using some data, and just took a screenshot of off of a project I was working on. This was the number of census tract in Philadelphia with low access to vehicles, and how you can make maps and pull up the table and get all that data, and lots of things there. So that kind of fit in with that project as well. Unit 3, expressions and equations. That's where we wanted to, the project was about orbital velocity and things like that. So there's our tie into our Twig science curriculum. So there's some interdisciplinary there, as well as expressions, equations, functions. That's kind of one of the foundations of some of the Python things that I've already done in Ms. Whalen's class about writing functions. So that, to get to that, geometry is unit 4. There's a designing a zoo is one of the projects that's in there. So this is a program, OpenSCAD, which allows them to make, you'll see words up there, circle and square and polygons and cylinders and cubes and things like that. But you also see translate, that idea of taking a shape and translating, meaning moving along the x-axis, the y-axis, the z-axis, moving things in space. This is just a screenshot, but I can spin that thing around and do all kind of crazy stuff with that. Differences, unions, lots of things that they can make there, find volumes, all kinds of things that would be involved in that with time geometry. And the last unit is on statistics and probability. So there's a unit there about exercise and taking data, things like that. There's also, I put into there, decision trees, and this now gets into machine learning and artificial intelligence, the foundational parts of that. So we know that our sixth graders, by the time they get out of the workforce, I don't think we can even imagine what AI is going to look like and their understanding of that. So this is taken from one of the most famous data sets out there is with irises. And they've taken all the measurements of irises and they've tabulated all that data. And then that's one of your first projects that you would do in artificial intelligence is writing the classifiers that given these measurements, what type of iris do you think that is? So you have to like ask yourself questions to figure out this tree, to figure out at the very end, what is the percentage chance it's a certain type of iris. But it's really important to figure out which questions you ask in which order. And that can be done even without a computer, just that thought process of how that all works. And that can build up, and that's kind of the foundation of a lot of the artificial intelligence that's out there. So that would be in that list. I think that wraps up.
That's sixth grade?
Yeah.
Very
That
different,
is
different.
And I'll tell you, again, being in a news class in that 8 workshop, but I've also been in 4th grade where I've been called in to come over and a teacher said, this student is working, can you help them out? And I got over there and the kid just needed me to like get this loaded and then it was like, leave me alone, and I just like watched him go and I was like, doing it. So there's kids that are excited about this that are already starting, especially in the gifted classes in 4th grade. It was his own pride, he could do anything he wanted. And he wanted Python and the teacher didn't know, so they called me and I just watched the kid work for a while. I didn't have to tell him.
That's amazing.
This is excellent. I mean, data is everything now, so. And I like that there's this excellent emphasis on problem solving. Like, so you're not just learning your timetables, obviously they're way past that, but I like the problem solving elements to this too. It's very helpful for the more advanced mathematics. It's setting them up for success.
Thank you, it was very thorough.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you both. Your passion for education and for kids is amazing. It's excellent to see we're all working off the same page as far as data. That's a big improvement. But as well, especially your passion for your kids is what makes Penridge great. And thank you for coming and sharing that. It was excellent.
We have the best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So next up, we will have a summary review of the Penridge School District Comprehensive Plan.
When I went to high school, we had to dial into a computer and fill in using teletype, type paper tapes.
Okay.
That was our state. Computer going make it go.
I'm Chad Evans from Box IU.
And Chad Evans has worked with us for a second time on the development of our comprehensive plan. We've worked together before, and we are happy to say that the comprehensive plan is actually posted on our website. There was a lot of work that went into that. We thank board members who participated, and many members of the community and the school community got together and really worked hard on the development of the goals of this plan. And then as those goals were kind of written out and teased out, Chad really did a lot of work with the feedback portion of this to kind of massage this. What we're showing you here is a kind of a community version that compiles all the information in a digestible way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%, yeah. There are, what is posted on the website should be the full comprehensive plan with all of the metrics and outcomes that you would expect them to have. Sometimes that 130-page document isn't a lot of fun for people to go through, so we basically took the main highlights here, your priorities, your goals, and the action plans. And I actually think that, well, I didn't know that, you heard an example of what happens when you have a good framework, but then you allow your teachers and your building principals to add all of the details to that. So I remind the board and the community that a comprehensive plan is the skeletal framework of what we hope the next 3 years will look like. And then our building principals and our classroom teachers are the ones who make that plan come to life, and it could not have asked for a better setup to that work. We had over 50 people participate in several meetings, beginning all the way back in May. So we had a really nice runway of time to take feedback from each of those meetings, work through it. We essentially arrived at a series of priorities and goals. The state asks for no more than 4 priorities and 3 goals per priority, for 12. And I always remind our folks that if you have 12 goals, you have probably way too many. And so what you see here is a very focused, tight, comprehensive plan with a series of goals, 3 goals, but within those goals are a series of action plans, and those action plans are where things happen. And so the first priority here is a focus on future-ready college and career pathways. Again, a priority and a goal, and then how that manifests itself. There we go. How that manifests itself in particularly the high schools, but also trickles down. So looking at things like how can we get our students more involved and engaged in the community that they live in and serve in. We wanted to take some energy to focus around academic planning. So how do we do that from a more personalized perspective? How do we ensure that every kid gets what they need and deserve through their experiences and prepare them for whatever that next step is for them? And then expand those pathways that are possible for our kids. And so that is a real heavy focus of the first priority.
And we've already added future teachers, so we've already done the work.
The second component of the plan is really focused on those teaching and learning outcomes. Comprehensive planning somewhat can be about compliance. We know that one of the big lifts for our teachers right now is a focus on implementing the new SEALS standards. And so that becomes front and center. That becomes a huge focus these next couple of years, is ensuring that our kids have access to those high quality standards and the high quality teaching and learning that comes with that. You heard perfect examples tonight about what it means to focus on critical thinking, problem solving, and authentic assessment. Again, we could not have been set up better for the kind of work that we're talking about there with this next comprehensive plan. Focus on continuing strengthening our digital literacy and the impact of artificial intelligence in our schools and classrooms for our kids. And then, again, our building principals are always responsible for using their data to determine what their goals are, and so making sure that we left some room in there for each of the building principals to develop their school-based getting results plan. So real heavy focus there with that second priority on teaching and learning. And then culture, climate, and safety. So ensuring that we have a caring school community, that we're ensuring that people feel seen, heard, and valued, develop a sense of belonging, developing strength and support for mental health and student well-being, which also bleeds into support through our school counseling services, so strengthening those. I always remind everybody, sometimes when you look at a comprehensive plan, the question is like, well, don't we already do that? Yes, but part of what we're trying to do is make a commitment to strengthen those services, provide resources where we can. This is not always about what we don't do, it's what we can improve upon as we move forward these next 3 years. And then again, looking at wellness supports and peer supports. And then lastly, those ensuring that our safety precautions are in place, that we're drilling appropriately, that our facilities are secure, and that, again, when people are in our schools, they feel safe and secure. And then lastly, strengthening and expanding our PBIS supports, which again, are focused on student behavior and well-being within the schools. So I will remind you before we take any questions that every 3 years, the school district is required to complete a comprehensive plan. What you don't see here, but is also posted online, are a series of other reports that happen at the same time. So this comprehensive plan is the community-supported part of setting those priorities and goals. But there is also a professional development plan, which hits all the mandatory required professional development training, which no one takes anything off our plates. They just keep adding to them. All good things, but they do continue to layer those in. You'll also see the induction plan, which is how we support our newest teachers when they come to Penn Ridge or any school district. There is a mandatory 2-year required induction plan. And then the fourth thing you'll see there is our gifted assurances. So ensuring that we're providing supports and services to our students who are identified as gifted. Those are the 4 reports that are posted for public review, and that you as a board will be voting on in a couple of weeks. When you do your board motion in a couple of weeks, there are 2 additional reports that do not require public review because they're more of a back-end assurances, but I'll highlight what those two things are. The first are your student services assurances. So some of that are your school safety. Do you have MOUs with your local law enforcement? They're, again, a compliance check to make sure that you're hitting all the things that are required. And the second thing are your academic assurances, which is basically certifying that all of your curriculum is aligned with PA standards. It's also ensuring that your teachers are evaluated under Act 13. And so again, there's nothing in those plans that require discussion, but they are a certification that your administration says these things that are required by law are in place. So when you file that final board vote in a couple of weeks, there will be those 5 reports are what you're ultimately voting on that night, all together in a full package. So that was probably more than you were looking for, but I wanted to provide a highlight. And I would also say that I love being a part of these comprehensive planning processes. I'm always very welcomed here in Penridge. Several of the board members I had a chance to work with you as a part of the steering committee work. And I certainly want to thank Dr. Shad for the opportunity to support you guys here in Penridge.
Our pleasure.
Any questions?
I'd like to thank you for your help. And we've worked together a number of times, and it's always good result. And this plan, I think, covers everything very, very well. So it's an excellent. I think it's a lot better than the last one we did. So
Thanks.
thank you for your help.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
I do have a question. I was, you may have touched on this, but I was reading through it as we were talking, so I may have missed it. In the larger plan, does it have how we're measuring all of these
Does.
things? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so what happens is if we post, what we have found is there's been a request when you post the larger plan, which should be posted on the website, it gets lost, and I have to tell you, that's a state required plan, and the way that it comes out is not ideal to be read necessarily by input, but it is there, and we do have a version that I wouldn't say is, it's the draft version of the final plan that has it laid out there. So you can see it on the full version. This is just like, what are you gonna do?
Yes, yes.
Correct.
Got it, thank you.
But I
Thank you very much. Brings us to our final agenda item of the evening, obsolete books for review with Dr. Scheid. Does anybody have any questions about any of the obsolete items up for review?
Just, it's the same old form, or are we standardizing?
Yes, we did. And
We're
we are
standardized.
ensuring that they're all typed in uniform.
Okay, so I saw a lot of handwritten stuff, but then it
And
just
we-
said C list or.
Yes, and we will ensure there are
Scroll
no
down.
handwritten ones.
Yep.
They're all going to be typed out.
Yeah, I think the handbook is just the first page where
Right.
there's,
Yeah,
yeah.
we don't want to create a lot of work either, though, so I hope that's not burdening anybody, just,
I think we're all on board.
is it,
We are.
it should be part of the library system, isn't it, where you like
It is, the
obsolete it?
printout is. I think
Okay.
it was that first page where
Yeah, you don't,
teachers were handwriting. It's not the press the button and the list comes out. That comes from the library
okay,
system.
but isn't that what you use? Don't you go in and check it out and then just print it out? Or why do you do that paper, the handwritten?
Because the cover page isn't coming from,
Yeah.
excuse me, coming from the system.
Okay.
The cover page is ours.
So you're
The
not
rest
writing
is-
the books out anymore, that comes from the
Right.
computer, so that
And
saves
now-
time.
Exactly. So the list you're seeing is generated from the
Perfect.
library's
That's it.
database. Yes.
All right.
Right.
In that case, our next curriculum committee meeting is April 7th of 2025.
Well, thank you.